Hey everyone, Tim here from SnapAttack. Let's dig into this week's Threat Snapshot. So this month's April Patch Tuesday had a whopping 97 vulnerabilities fixed, including one 0-day that's being actively exploited. And unfortunately we don't have time to cover all 97 of them, but we're going to pick our top 3. So the first one, this one has been named QueueJumper. This is a vulnerability affecting the MSMQ or Microsoft Message Queue service. Apparently from the author, this is a trivial vulnerability. It's pretty high impact, and again, it gives remote code execution to any server that has the Microsoft Messaging Queue service installed. That's bundled in a lot of production applications, particularly things like Microsoft Exchange Server. So this can definitely be a pretty high impact. There's a couple other related vulnerabilities here. QueueJumper is the main one, but there are 2 that will cause a denial of service or a service crash. Again, this is all from Checkpoint Research, so definitely take a look at their blog where they'll detail a little bit more about that. The researcher who found this, Hi-Fi Lee, has some interesting tweets here about this. Couple of things I just wanted to point out showing, the scope here. So, using Shodan or Census or one of those, internet surveying tools, they found at least 360,000 of these internet-facing IPs with MSMQ enabled. Again, that's going to be TCP port 1801. So that's at least just what's the external attack surface. Obviously, if you're a red teamer or, an adversary and you're inside of a network, there's probably going to be a lot more of these too. So this is definitely something that you will want to patch really as soon as possible. We do have a couple of detections here that we're going to point out. And again, this is really still a best effort because there aren't any public POCs available. But supposedly, given the trivial nature of this, they expect there to be some POCs, within about 48 hours after people get a chance to reverse engineer the patches. So this one here is looking at network activity. Again, this is going to be a low confidence threat hunting rule. If you're looking for, say, external attack surface, you would probably want to add, a filter here to look for IP addresses that are, not internal facing, or you can do something very similar for, looking for internal threats using the service too, looking for services that aren't normally interacting with the message queue service, looking for those IP addresses. So you can look at this from a network standpoint. Probably a higher confidence detection is going to be looking at this from like an EDR process creation standpoint. So the service is mqsvc.exe, and again, given that this is going to be more of a living off the land technique, you want to look for suspicious invocations of PowerShell or CMD or other kind of binaries that are built into Windows. That's going to give you that remote code execution, and that would really light up on different process graphs here. So looking for suspicious child processes would be a good way to detect this threat. Moving on to the next CVE. So we're going to talk about CVE 2023-21817. This is a Kerberos local privilege escalation that was, finally patched here. So shout out to Nick Landers here, who, has some interesting information about the vulnerability. He also put together a, very minimal proof of concept. I will say that if you go and try and compile this code, it's not necessarily going to work out of the box without some tweaks. It looks like there's, again, this SCM client library that's being referenced that might be private, as well as the silver ticket class. So a couple people have commented this isn't going to work out of the box, but again, pretty trivial to see. And again, this goes through all of the steps on how to use this. Again, because this POC isn't, runnable in its current state, that means it's going to be a little bit harder to exploit. Couple of things that we will see here. So you see the service commands. So they're going to take this, Kerberos ticket, and you're going to see them having a silver ticket. So again, that's going to be based on the, compromised service account credential. And they're going to basically install a service on the system that's going to run in that elevated context. So, when thinking about detection opportunities, how would I detect? How would I hunt for this sort of thing? A couple of things come to mind, particularly around the silver ticket aspect and the, service creation aspect. So silver tickets, as I'll remind you, looking at Sean Metcalf's blog, adsecurity.org, we have, again, silver tickets. They don't actually interact with the domain controller. So there really isn't a Windows event log that you can look at to say, yep, that's a silver ticket activity. Since it is a forged ticket, that's just going to be passing that forged ticket over to the application server for authentication, and then it's going to, get that back. So really, you're going to be looking at login, log off, and other kind of suspicious events. Typically, because it's forged, it's going to be forged incorrectly without a proper, target domain name in there. So again, not super high fidelity to look at. So that's one thing that's going to pose a challenge for this. You can also look at, again, remote service creation. So we have, detections like this that can start to work out. So Windows event log 7045, looking for, service created. You can see other threats like this that are using that remote service creation. So like, patch the hash, WMI-exec, IP packet, PS-exec. So looking for, again, remote or local or other service creation events can help here to see that sort of privilege escalation. Moving on to the last vulnerability that we want to talk about from Patch Tuesday. So this is from Kaspersky's blog, Secure List, and this is the last CVE in here. This one is affecting the Common Log File System, or CLFS, on Windows. It was assigned CVE 2023-28252, and this was the 0-day that was being actively exploited by the Nokoyawa ransomware group and is part of this patch. So again, typically ransomware activities, they're going to want to escalate privileges so they can extract files and things from your system if they want to do like a double extortion method, or make sure they can encrypt different files and things on the system. So this blog post details what they've seen on the attack, particularly with the post-exploitation. It seems like the main purpose of this privilege escalation was to dump the HK local machine SAM registry archive. So again, you can see that they're doing some, credential harvesting. Other TTPs this attacker was using was, Cobalt Strike Beacon, lots of other kind of post-exploitation techniques, which again, we have really good coverage for in Snap attacks. So definitely worth taking a look. Again, from what we've seen, this exploit POC, we're not finding any hits for this hash at the moment, so nobody's uploaded that to VirusTotal or another malware repository. So actually seeing what this looks like is going to be a challenge. So I will just kind of mention that we have a couple of candidate detections here. This one is an older detection for CLFS exploitation. Again, that common log format service, it's looking at, they have these kind of log files, these BLF log files, and this was an older CVE. We have that here in Snap Attack. This was 2022-24521. Again, this was last year reported by both CrowdStrike and the NSA, who found this threat. But we can actually kind of see what that threat looks like. And, this detection here was looking for the CLFS application, writing these, drivers again in that temp directory. So, this sort of detection may also work against here, and it's definitely something that we're going to keep an eye out for when there are, active POCs available for this threat. Last thing, this is a little bit more of a fun one. Again, there's always very, very interesting, unusual attack surfaces, particularly on, commonly used tools. So, we've covered a lot of Microsoft Office products and tools. This one doesn't have a named CVE or a CVE ID even for it, but Microsoft has their AI.exe, and when Office opens up, it's going to look for that in a specific folder, particularly the program files, Office root, and the Office version. So MS Word is going to look for that, and this is an example of, executable or DLL or really kind of library hijacking, where because Microsoft is in Office is looking for that binary, if you can put that or put a binary in that path with a malicious one, now you've got, persistence and a backdoor access for code execution. So, shout out to Greg for finding this threat. We do have an example of this here in Snap Attack. So, have our Windows machine here. We've got that file that we're going to drop in that location. Over here on our Linux side, we've got a, Cobalt Strike open. And really, we're just going to kind of see here that once that is, dropped in that location, so we copy that over there, Office is going to open up, and we're going to see our beacon, get registered, and now we can interact with our server. So Again, nothing, really nasty or interesting that's going to pop up on the user side, but, really easy to, get execution here and have that persistence. So you can definitely see attackers and red teamers using this. And good news is this is also something that is very detectable. So we have a detection for this in Snap Attack. Again, looking for any AI.exe processes that are put in this path. Again, because Microsoft isn't shipping with a binary in that location, we can look for file creation events around there or any process that where that is being launched from that path. Either of those two opportunities would work for identifying this file. So that's our threat snapshot for the week. This is a weekly series. Like, subscribe, comment below the video, and we'll see you next time.